quite wondering that
EyeOpener. How to feel better about the future. Speaking from experience, I can honestly say that being prepared for the future our leaders have in store for us requires much more than having money in the bank. While money can secure your future, it can only do so in a civilized society in which that money is deemed valuable. As an example, I would put forth the US dollar, which has lost 95% of its value since its inception. While once a joke between one generation to the next or one generation to the offspring of that generation, in other words, from grandparents to grandchild, the amount of groceries one could buy with a given amount of US dollars has drastically decreased for everyone. While this diminished value does not significantly impact the day-to-day lives of those with the excess of wealth that has been funneled their way, it makes life for an ever-increasing number of Americans harder, year after year, month after month, week after week, and day after day, in the most extreme cases. Just imagine how little the loss of half their fortune would impact a billionaire's life as opposed to someone making minimum wage. The billionaire goes from hoarding $1,000 million to only hoarding $500 million. That person can still buy any food they wish to eat. They can still buy any clothes they wish to wear. They can still buy any car they wish to buy. It only becomes slightly difficult for them to buy any house they wish to buy, because they might not be able to purchase certain homes that come with their own island, but for the most part, they could more than likely buy any home in which they would like to live. Now, compare this to the other extreme on the economic scale. We don't even have to go out of the country. We don't need to look at that great percentage of human beings who must live off the equivalent of $1 per day. We can simply look at how devastating the inequality in America is for far too many Americans. If you make the equivalent of the current federal minimum wage, you earn $7.25 an hour, something that hasn't changed since 2009. At 40 hours a week, you earn a gross income of $290 a week, which amounts to $1,160 a month before taxes. And once taxes are deducted, let's say 20% is deducted, that employee is left with only $928 for the month. When the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in the United States is $1,595 per month, this employee could never live on their own. There are no bootstraps of which this employee could pull oneself up by. For reference, this was President Obama's advice during the last major economic collapse in America. Too bad Obama didn't apply that advice to the banks that actually controlled and caused that last collapse. Just to afford groceries, the referenced employee would have to live with two other employees making minimum wage. That's 3 people living in a one-bedroom apartment. I imagine that these individuals would have to be sleeping in shifts. The devaluation of this employee's money has a great impact on their life. So, consider how inflation must impact someone making less than the federal minimum wage. In the richest nation to ever exist on planet Earth, this not only feels like something that should not occur, but something that should definitely not be happening to the extent to which it is occurring. Not only does this sound unlikely, but it sounds like something that would have to be planned, executed, and controlled by whomever is controlling such a system. For a deeper dive into how every dollar introduced into the economy devalues every dollar that is already in the system, look at previous posts on MikeSonsEntertainment.com. There you will also find posts as to why there should not be a single billionaire until every man, woman, and child have everything needed for survival, and why the ultra-wealthy have to be sociopaths in order to sleep well at night. For now, however, let's discuss the type of planning that might help you sleep well at night. People used to mock that category of people known as preppers. To be a prepper simply means to be prepared in general, but specifically refers to those who are prepared for when the crap hits the fan. From the most ridiculous scenarios like a zombie apocalypse, to one that feels more inevitable with every year that passes, like the collapse of the supply chain. After all, there is only 3 days of food on your local grocery store's shelves. And just look at how crazy the people of America got when they thought there would be a shortage of toilet paper during COVID-19. For this reason, I was glad to have bought and installed the bidets that grace every toilet in my house, even though there are times when I can't use my bidet. Like at work or out to dinner, I can't imagine life without one in the home. So I've gotten to the bottom of this post. Let's start at the top. I can still recall worrying about losing access to food for one of a myriad of reasons. Natural disasters like hurricanes blocking shipping routes or tornadoes wiping out that local grocery store, or man-made disasters like a train crash that dumps chemicals on an entire town where the government offers a one-time payment for an emergency that lingers for years, or an instance when the governing body ignores warnings about lead in the drinking water pipes. There are just far too many possibilities for disaster and far too many examples of the government not stepping up with an appropriate response for this, not to be a concern that plagued me every day and night. As for food, my response was to buy Mylar bags, moisture desiccants, food-safe buckets with gamma lids, and lots of dried beans and rice. With a shelf life of 25 to 30 years, the more dry rice and beans you can store, the better. Just make certain you figure out ways to grow your own food once those stores are gone, or make certain you can catch your own food. There are plenty of other foods you can store that will be ready in the event of whatever emergency you face. Then there are other needs like medicines and the means to build a temporary shelter that must be considered. The last requirement becoming a reality for more Americans every day. The list of necessities is quite extensive and can be quite daunting, but there is a solution. Research these requirements and buy them incrementally. Spend a little time understanding each of these needs and then budget to buy them incrementally. Trust me, every item you buy helps to alleviate your concerns about what seems to be more inevitable on a daily basis. And even though some of the emergency supplies you may buy might be more symbolic than others, these too will still bring you a modicum of peace of mind. And truth be told, they will still be more valuable than the dollars that no longer serve any purpose. Just remember, the dollar is only the latest currency of reserve, as every currency of reserve before the dollar has come and gone. Not even a memory for most people alive today. Who remembers the name of the currencies of reserve when they were created by Portugal, Spain, or the Netherlands? And like those currencies, the dollar could someday be worth as little as those. And it is then that you'll wish that you had bought emergency supplies instead of earning the 75 cents in interest, which took a year to accrue. If you're like me, the peace of mind that knowing you have at least 6 months worth of food and other supplies will prove much more valuable than the money spent on them. If you like the videos here and would like to see more, let your friends and family know about this website called Mike's Sons Entertainment on YouTube. There are plenty of blogs, news, and websites reporting and complaining about our leaders and their failures. How many, however, are offering or even pointing to any solutions? The book Solutions, Enough Complaining, Let's Fix America by Chris Osman does, and it can be found on Amazon or at www.mikesonsentertainment.com. To find out other ways you're being screwed by your current leaders, check out the posts on this blog daily. Learn about the biggest and worst issues that America and its people face today. You can also check in to this blog daily to hear about those issues that America and its people will face in the near and distant future. If, however, you would like to discover possible solutions to either mitigate the worst impacts of these issues or solutions to avoid them altogether, keep listening. The problems we face are not as complicated as so many leaders and news reports claim. They are man-made and are only claimed as complicated so those who are responsible can maintain control. For example, there is a persistent argument that moving government is like turning a cruise ship around. It is supposedly a long process that can only be achieved incrementally. While this may be true for laws and policies that benefit the majority of Americans, it does not seem to be so for that smallest of American minorities. When one examines the policies and laws that benefit that minority known as the elite or the rich, the speed at which those laws are passed is exponentially faster. While most of us sit on the deck chairs waiting for the Titanic to avoid the myriad of icebergs of which we seem to continually run afoul, the elite ride comfortably in speedboats. If, according to the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, why do the rich live quite different lives than the rest of us? Where is our speedboat? In 2018, Chris Osman wrote a book highlighting the problems humanity would face if more power, wealth, and control were funneled to a small group of individuals, groups, or organizations. In that book, Mr. Osman provides solutions, offered up from himself and others, to the inevitable problems we would all face. In it, he also provided a means for the public to analyze, compare, and contrast the words and deeds of those we've chosen to follow against our real-world experiences. To this end, Mr. Osman provides the means for readers to disseminate information as provided by their news sources of choice, their elected officials, and any other authority they choose to follow. The book, titled Solutions, Enough Complaining, Let's Fix America, offers a means to hold leaders up, not just to a higher standard than is currently accepted, but to one that will improve lives. Be prepared, be secure. Click the link below and get your copy of Solutions today.
Better to have and not need than to need, and not have